Dear Diary, my wife and best friend Annie, and I have a unique story that confuses most people who hear it. To be honest, sometimes we're confused too, but it works for us, and that's all that matters. We've been best friends for over a decade, and in many ways we know each other better than anyone else ever could. But about 4 years ago, something happened that changed the course of our lives. Annie works freelance, which has always made getting consistent health insurance a challenge for her. There were stretches of time where she had none at all, which constantly worried me. Then, 4 years ago, she had a major health scare. It was terrifying for both of us. As her best friend, I felt helpless, and it broke my heart that she had to worry not only about her health but also about how she'd afford care. Meanwhile, I had decent insurance through my job, and after a lot of discussions, we finally said, "You know what? Screw it, let's just get married." I remember sitting across from her in our favorite diner when the idea first came up. We laughed it off at first, thinking how ridiculous it sounded. But then it hit us, why not? Why follow society's rigid rules when there was a clear solution staring us in the face? So we did it. We got married. Not for love in the traditional sense, but because we deeply cared about each other and wanted to support each other through life. And honestly, it felt more right than any relationship I'd ever been in before. Thankfully, the health scare turned out to be just that, a scare. She's healthy now, and we've been able to move forward with our lives. But that marriage wasn't just a practical arrangement, it became a foundation for something we never quite expected. Fast forward a year and we found ourselves making another bold decision: buying an apartment together. Neither of us could afford a place on our own, especially in the city where rents are ridiculous. So we pooled our resources and bought a small, modest apartment. It's not glamorous, far from it actually, but it's ours. We've made it a home, one where we both feel comfortable and safe. We have separate rooms and we still casually dated others for a while, but we talked it over and decided to fully commit to being married. We love each other, we live together, and we're happy, so does it really matter that we're not gay? Our day-to-day life isn't all that different from any other household, but the way we approach things might be. For one, we have a pretty clear system for dividing responsibilities. Annie's a night owl, so she usually handles late-night tasks like cleaning up the kitchen or finishing up any shared errands we didn't get to earlier in the day. I, on the other hand, am an early bird, so I handle the morning routines, getting groceries, tidying up, and making coffee. She insists I make the best coffee she's ever had. We share bills, chores, and even some hobbies. We've started a small herb garden on our tiny balcony, and it's become one of our favorite weekend activities. Neither of us had a green thumb when we started, but now we have thriving basil, mint, and rosemary plants. Sometimes we'll sit out there with tea just talking about life, future plans, or whatever random thing is on our minds. We often go on platonic dates just as we used to do as friends. Cooking is another shared activity we've come to love. Annie is a fantastic cook, and while I can barely chop an onion without crying, I've become her sous chef. We've made everything from homemade pasta to elaborate curries. It's these little moments, chopping vegetables side by side or laughing over a recipe gone wrong, that make me realize how lucky I am to have her in my life. One of the biggest decisions we've yet to make is whether or not to have children. It's a topic that comes up often, and while we haven't settled on an answer, we've agreed on one thing. If we do have kids, we're having them together, not with a man. We've even started talking about what parenting and co-parenting would look like. We imagine a household where both of us are equally involved in raising the kids. Annie has already volunteered to handle the fun activities like arts and crafts, while I'd probably take on the more structured responsibilities, like helping with homework. We've even joked about how our kids would have two moms who aren't a couple but still love each other deeply. It's an unconventional idea, but that's kind of the theme of our life together. Of course, not everyone understands our arrangement. We've had to deal with our fair share of raised eyebrows and probing questions. Some people assume we're secretly in love with each other, while others think we're just confused about our sexuality. Then there are the more practical challenges. For example, when we bought our apartment, the bank officer looked at us like we were crazy. "So you're married, but you're not together? Like, together?" he asked. We just nodded and said, "Exactly." He didn't push further, but I could see the confusion on his face. At family gatherings, we sometimes feel like we're on display. Relatives will whisper, "When are they going to admit they're a couple?" We've stopped trying to explain ourselves to most people. If they don't get it, that's fine. What matters is that we're comfortable and content. Everyone in our life is really confused about our marriage, and I guess to some extent so are we. But this seems like a don't fix what ain't broken situation. We may still be getting used to what it means to be platonically married. However, we do know that we're both not gay, but we're also more than friends. The love and care I have for this woman pales in comparison to the ways I felt about boyfriends in the past. And before the best pal jokes start pouring in, I've never in my life been sexually aroused by a woman, and I very much still find men hot. Being in a platonic marriage has taught me a lot about what love and partnership really mean. I've learned that love doesn't have to fit into a neat little box labeled romantic or platonic. It can be a mix of many things: a deep bond, mutual respect, and an unwavering commitment to each other's happiness. It's also taught me the importance of living authentically. Society has a lot of rules about what relationships and marriages are supposed to look like, but those rules don't work for everyone. Annie and I are proof that you can create your own path. You don't have to follow a script to be happy. You just have to find what works for you and hold on to it, no matter how unconventional it might seem to others. Our story might not make sense to everyone, but that's okay. It doesn't need to. The only thing that matters is that it makes sense to us. We've created a life together that is full of love, laughter, and support. And honestly, I've never been happier. Now, I always tell people that if they're ever feeling stuck or unsure about how to live your life, they must remember that there's no universal formula for happiness. You can define your own rules, write your own story, and create a life that feels right for you. Annie and I did, and it's the best decision we've ever made. Until tomorrow, diary sealed.
Dear diary,